My name is Regina Lolka. I'm in Toronto, Canada. I am now head of school, but I am Montessori trained, Montessori parent, and Montessori grandparent. So what a pleasure and a privilege for me to be here and be able to be part of this larger community. I want to acknowledge Simone and all the other people in Montessori everywhere for the great big birthday bash that originated this whole, well, it was going to be a celebration and it's now a movement. So thank you, Montessori everywhere, for making us all continue to grow and now expand into a second set of sessions. So today we are all together going to explore the idea of the child. Before that, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. It's very important for all of us to know where we are and where we came from. And that is such a Montessori concept, is it not? That of gratitude. So if you, I can ask you to think for a minute or so about the land where you are sitting and what it means to you. In my case, I'm in Toronto, Canada, and I acknowledge that the land is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And now it's home to diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. So I'm honored to be part of this land with all of you from so many lands. As many of you may know, the initiative for Montessori Everywhere was to bring us all together to celebrate, to connect, to dialogue, and to challenge ourselves. One of the motivations for the event in August was to support the foundation of the Black Montessori Education Fund. And Dr. Aziz Sabater is here with us today, so I want to acknowledge the fund and the work of Montessori in the Black community that we are, if I can say, so proud of and cheering on so much. So if you have any funds to redistribute to the Black I have asked Hital to please put the website and how to contact that wonderful organization. So this program is free. Montessori wanted to be sure that many of us could access it, but if you can redistribute some funds to the education fund, that would be wonderful. I've mentioned her a few times, so this is Hital. Can you wave to us, Hital? From her amazing background, you can all recognize who's behind her. Hital is our wonderful tech person without whom I don't think we could be doing this. And it is my immense pleasure to introduce Lucy Canzeroni. Lucy, can you say hello so that we all know who you are? I am so pleased to introduce Lucy. Lucy Harold's from Colombia, and she is a recent PhD together with her partner in her school. She founded the Coral Reef Montessori in 1998 and has made it grow beautifully. Lucy brings passion, respect, and a deep commitment to Montessori education. She follows Dr. Montessori, but together with that, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and she's part of the Soka Gakkai peace movement. So Lucy, we're waiting with bated breath. Congratulations on the birth of your grandchild, a brand new Montessori generation. And I can't wait to hear you. As soon as Lucy finishes, we're going to be set into breakout rooms. There'll be some guiding questions. And I look forward to some wonderful discussions and dialogue. Simone, Tammy, did I miss anything?
So I think you're good, Rahina. I'm just going to quickly go over the grace and courtesy for our meeting this session. And real quick, they are going to be that if you are able to, please leave your cameras on if your bandwidth allows that. And please stay muted during the entire time when we are in the bigger group. And when you are in the smaller breakout rooms, please feel free to leave the cameras and your microphones unmuted, and cameras on and microphones unmuted. That way you are able to have a conversations. I just wanted to let you know that this meeting is recorded, but the breakout rooms will not be recorded. So you can feel free to like, have a conversation there. And remember, one thing that I'd like for you all to remember is remember your breakout room numbers, because if any case there's any technology issue that happens at any time, you can let me know the breakout room, and I make sure you're on the right room and you can continue your conversation there. Okay, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Hetal and Lucy.
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here. I see some familiar faces, and Dr. Aziz, shout out to you. And, just really so excited about this worldwide movement that we are all a part of. I'm really, really excited. As Regina said, I'm originally from Colombia, but I was raised in New York City. And I got interested in Montessori when I moved actually to Miami in the 80s. And I fell in love. It was definitely love at first sight. And I was fortunate enough to, work in what we call Title I Montessori schools, which in Miami, they identified schools that had the lowest socioeconomics. And I predominantly worked with in the communities that I worked with were predominantly African American. And in my training, I met my best friend, Juliet King, who is also a sister and mentor for me. And together, after we worked at the Title I Montessori schools in Miami, we decided to start our own Montessori charter school because we recognized that even within the public school systems, there were limitations, right? And we wanted to really be able to break those barriers. Since then, we have definitely examined Montessori closely because we love it. And because we've examined it, we've been also critical of Montessori too, right? How can we really make Montessori work for all children, especially Black children, right? Because in our educational system in the United States, as in many places and parts of the world, there is such systemic racism that has really adversely affected predominantly Black, Indigenous, and students of color. So I've been very honored to be able to get my training and learn how to really be a Montessorian through working, with all children. And in my own school, Dr. King and I decided that we really wanted to re-examine Montessori and really work on, because we really believed in the philosophy, but we also saw some of the limitations. And our biggest encouragement was to really dig deep into ourselves, our transformation, right? So as a Buddhist of close to 40 years, I found that this concept of Montessori transformation it really aligns with the Buddhism of what I call human revolution. And I feel that, every day is a lesson for me. Every day I'm able to be humbled by my own practices and self-examining my own biases and my own parts of my being that do not service humanity, right? And so really being able to take responsibility and examine myself moment to moment, and really discarding my ego and liberating myself. If I don't do the work, I can't expect anyone else to do the work. And it doesn't matter whether I have a title or whether I do research or whether I'm successful or not. What's really matters is how am I able to manifest these ideals of what Dr. Montessori was saying, what most people who are really trying to move the world in the direction of humanity are saying, if I don't live it myself. So every day I'm humbled and learning to be a better person. I also want to acknowledge my own indigenous ancestors from Colombia, and the Chibcha is where my family were colonized, but also, that's part of my heritage. And also here in Miami, we are sitting on the Tequesta land, the Seminoles, and right now we have a vibrant Miccosukee community that's right here in my backyard, in our backyard. So again, just also taking that opportunity to acknowledge. So I'm very excited because this focus is on the child, right? And that's where Dr. Montessori said we begin, right? We begin with the child, right? The baby, the infant, and taking it from there. And so how can we really, once again, humbly, as the adults, examine ourselves, examine our practices, examine and interrogate what we can do better to serve children, what we can do better in order to eradicate and eliminate systemic racism and anti-Blackness. So with that said, this is a worldwide movement, and these evils that we continuously in education have to combat that are in our own consciousness are global issues as well. So it's very exciting that we're here to have a global conversation about this and to learn from one another. And again, I'm deeply humbled to be here, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you all and to learn from you. I think I'm done. Is there anything else that, Regina?
Thank you so much, Lucy. So before we go to our breakout rooms, we have 2 questions for you to focus on. And if you can keep in mind Lucy's words right now, and what she tried to transmit to us about where we're coming from, our own biases and our own approaches to our work, and where we stand within ourselves, within our communities, our ancestry, and again, our focus on the child. I hope you had time to listen to the original recording from Montessori Everywhere in August about the child. And if you can keep in mind Lucy's thoughts right now, as well as whatever we heard in the recording. And if you didn't, no problem. Your facilitators will help us move through it. So I know that the questions will be put on the cell. I'm sorry, on the chat for now. If we want to think about 2 questions. First, and based on everything you've heard, how successful would you say that we are as societies, as parents, and as educators in accepting the child as they are? Those words, accepting the child as they are today. How can we get closer to seeing the child as they are rather than what society tells us they are? That's question number 1 that we're going to grapple with and dialogue upon. And question 2, what is work in Montessori terms? Such a big, important word that we use so much and so often. Let us take this opportunity as we gather from the 49 countries around the world. There are 103 of us, so there'll be a lot of good discussion in your breakout rooms. So again, we have facilitators for each breakout, and then we're going to gather together in the main room so that we can bring the wisdom that we gain from one another. Thank you so much. Hey, Tal.
Thank you, Rahina. I think we all set to go into our breakout rooms. And I just like a reminder again that you have to remember your breakout room number, please. All right, have fun.
And Tal, the last reminder, please.
Yes.
Let us see who we're talking to. It'd be lovely to see your faces.
Yes, it would be lovely to see your faces in the breakout rooms.
Thank you.
Is this the main room or breakout room?
Embrace in the 21st century Montessori for a better world for all.
Oh yeah. Like a light, you shine so bright into our lives. We love you forever and ever till the end. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate you. Your life was a shining path into our lives. Your passion for education has brought more light to the world, to all the children around the world. We love you, yes we do. You said if upon salvation and to come, they can only come from the children, for the children are the makers of men. These are your words. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate you.
An extraordinary woman. Embracing the 21st century Montessori for a better world for all.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like a light, you shine so bright into our lives. We love you forever and ever till the end. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate you, Maria Montessori. We celebrate your life was a shining path into our lives. Your passion for education has brought more light to the world, to all the children around the world. We love you.
All right, take it away.
Thank you, Heital. That was wonderful. And thank you to the children whose glorious faces we saw. So I'm glad to be back with you. I hope you all enjoyed your breakout groups. It's going to be a little bit hard to get to every one of the groups, but what we do ask is that in the chat, can you kindly tell us, we'll give you a few minutes, can you kindly tell us what was closest to your heart? What are you going to take away with you? What growth have you had? So if you can start putting that in the chat, we'll give you a couple of minutes before we start asking the facilitators to share the results from the groups. Thank you. And then we'll have some closing remarks from our guide. What has made this memorable? Was it the concept of work, society? What is it? Take a step back and think about the child, return to observing. Work is everywhere, that's beautiful. Respecting the child, to think creatively. This chat will be saved so that we can all take the time to read all the wonderful thoughts that we're all expressing here together. Parent education seems to be a bit of a thread that we need to consider. As you read through the chat, I find it fascinating how many things we have in common. So Steve Jobs said that we need to make a dent in the universe. And I think that's what we're doing right now. All 96 of us we're making a dent in the universe as we're making big changes in this important work. So I'd like to ask our facilitators if you'd like to share where, the highlights from your group. Fern, may I put you on the spot and start with our group? Group 3. And our new hallmark. On you. Thank you.
Okay,
Fern.
hi everybody. We had a very small group and we were able to really connect beautifully in the short period we had. I think Ekenibi, if I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry, from Nigeria opened us up with the child as a gift. And I think, and the idea that we must see and that we learn from the child every day. And that when we look at the child, we learn what love is, because they are so accepting. They don't have prejudice against skin color. Little children look at the baby. So we're not born with that idea to judge one another. And so as educators, I think the big thing was on how do we spread this word and make it more universally understood who the child is. And I know that was the work I did in my classroom, is stepping out and, working with parents, I think is a thread that's come through everywhere, that Montessorians need to unite with the family and the community and even up to government. I think we had a conversation like that's where we really have to get to in terms of changing society, right? At the core, we need to be brave to go into high places as Montessorians and not just stay in our little isolated worlds. And then play and work, that the adult needs to learn what play is from the child. They work to construct and their work is enjoyable. And as adults, we need to get away from this, that work is something we have to do. But that work is something that is a joyous, productivity comes from enjoying your work. And we all know when we're really doing something we're passionate about, we lose track of time. And we all have that sense, but we need to keep it in the forefront of our minds. And the child transcends cultural barriers. I think that came through for me. And something in the panel that if we all start with a smile towards the child smiles back, right? So this idea of a gift that we work with every day, I think that can be the forefront of our conversations, and working as a team.
Thank you
Regina,
so
have you
much,
got something to add?
I think you did a beautiful job for us. Thank you. I'd like to hear from other people, and it's hard to see who is a facilitator. So I see Lori, you're a facilitator. Can you share with us? And if I can remind everybody, short and sweet, and then put all other highlights on the chat so we can hear from more groups. Thank you.
Thanks, Regina. We were in group 10. We talked about that in order to accept the child for who they are, we first have to observe and really get back to our practice of observation. And the other piece to that is to truly trust the child and to know that the child and truly believe that the child is where they need to be, doing what they need to be doing. And when we don't have this trust, that's when we begin to impose these preconceived notions of what we believe the child should be doing, or what our school believes the child should be accomplishing, or what parents believe need to be accomplished. So in order to accept the child, there has to be a deep, deep trust in the child. And there are so many obstacles these days to that trust. And we talked a lot about that. Talked about being outcome driven and having to let go of that to some degree. Around the idea of work, we came to, we discussed how we get into routines and we have time restraints and have this sense of pressure that we must accomplish so much in a given amount of time. And so that we become work driven and versus experience and versus process. And so we again tie it to that outcome driven. We questioned the difference between play and work, as I heard someone else did, and why. We didn't have time to delve into this, but why do Montessorians have such a negative connotation towards play? Where did that come from? And if we hear so often that play is the work of childhood, and yet we fear using that word in our classrooms, and we kind of left it with that.
Thank you, Lori. I'm sure we all have,
Yep.
That was a really good reminder for all the discussions. Dr. Aisa was one of the facilitators. Dr. Aisa, can we hear from your group, please?
Yes, and if it's okay, I feel like I've been talking quite a bit. So I'm going to ask one of my dynamic group members. I see Prudence here. I see Stacy Keene here. If either one of them want to go ahead, unmute themselves and just give a quick snippet of what we did.
They're too shy.
Okay.
I'm happy to go. I was waiting for Prudence because she was our backup facilitator. But I'm happy to go. We talked a lot about having faith in the child and trust in their process and helping parents gain awareness for this child's journey and little snippets of when you're about ready to hold back the child, hold back yourself and see what happens, and take a moment to observe before stepping in. And I didn't get to share this in ours, but I have a trainer who has a saying, when in doubt, stay out. So sit down, sit on your hands and observe and have some trust and faith, and that children have been doing this throughout evolution, and it's not really our job to fill them up. They can take care of that on their own. So I'll keep it short and sweet.
Thank you so much. Can I hear from Nicole, please? Nicole.
Hi. So we talked a little bit about kind of everything that people have already said, so I don't want to reiterate that, but one of the things that we left on was talking about grace and courtesy and the importance of grace and courtesy in also the fact that grace and courtesy looks different in every community, and it is not an underlying borderline of it is respect, but what does respect look like and how different respect can feel. Respect isn't about being kind of this authoritative figure. So reminding us, how do we pass along and share grace and courtesy with other adults? And that's all I'm going to take up right now.
Thank you, Nicole. Can you quickly tell us where you are? Okay, I guess we lost Nicole. Sarah?
I am in.
Thank you. Sarah Breckenridge, you're in Australia. Can you tell us about your group?
Can if I unmute. We were also fortunate in that we had a small enough group to have a lovely discussion and have everyone give their opinions and thoughts, which was wonderful. And even with the language barriers and people speaking in a second language, everyone expressed themselves so beautifully, which was lovely. And really I had an immensely lovely time. What was interesting was most of our conversation came around the culture of the Western families and the struggles. Also the effects of COVID this year, and how that has been both a blessing and a curse in some ways. For some families, it's allowed them to see their children better, whereas for others, they're struggling terribly, which also led us to sort of deficiency of our Western culture to be connected, that and I think it's something that Montessori can sometimes cause a little bit more of an issue, because we talk about independence so clearly, whereas that also needs that focus on the fact of community. And well, we talked about the ideas of accountability and resilience and the consequences, so that all of that comes into play then, that you're not just this individual, you are part of something greater as well. And the struggles that parents are having as parents. So as much as we may say, you know, these issues with the children, actually, it's the fact that the parents are struggling and, you know, trying to do things as best they can. And certainly, I suppose, for all my colleagues in 0 to 3, this is very obvious to us. But what was really lovely also was to have somebody from adolescence, and maybe our role is to support the adolescents moving forward to be that adult role model that the child needs. So one of the other points that we made was the separateness of our society, in that we're either, you know, children or adolescents or new parents, or, you know, elderly people. Whereas if we can bring all of that into one, we all have something to offer. And certainly, you know, one of those things that's been seen quite recently, I think, is with the childcares or the children working alongside aged facilities, and how advantageous that is. But rather than just making it 2 age groups, it should be all of us. So
Thank you.
yeah, it was a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Oh, wonderful. And now may I invite Lucy, our guide, again for closing remarks.
Again, thank you so much. And I think that, you know, circling back to why we're here, and it's really to sort of examine our practices in terms of how can we support the child, right? And I think that one of the common themes that we talked about was really using observation as a way to step back and really observe the child, observe everything, the parents, but I think also observing ourselves, right? So how can we observe ourselves? I think that that's a crucial component, because again, it requires us to go and self-reflect and see how are we either contributing or becoming a barrier to that child's natural organic advancement. And I think just looking at things in new ways. And I think sometimes as Montessori, we were given this wonderful pedagogy that's based on science, right? But COVID has actually kind of broken some of those practices and allowed us to look at things in different ways. And I think there's beauty in that. I think there's beauty in struggling. I think that sometimes some of our cultures are uncomfortable with struggle, whereas other cultures are very familiar with struggle. And there's actually beauty in that struggle. And I think that if we as adults let go of the control, we can sort of see that children have a way of problem solving in such magnificent ways that we're all going to be kind of in shock. And I think that it loops back to what happened to Dr. Montessori when she was able to take a situation like being displaced in India and developing the cosmic education, right? So it wasn't what she was used to, but out of that came something beautiful. And I think we really need to hold on to that. One lady from the Philippines told us that they're actually allowing their parents to borrow the materials at home. Okay, that's something that would be unheard of in some Montessori circles. Oh, you can't touch this material yet because you haven't done this. I think that's fabulous, because we are now examining under these new conditions, new ways of looking at things. And that's something that is happening out of this difficult situation. So out of adversity comes greatness and positivity and love. And we just have to follow the children. Thank you all so much. I really enjoyed being here. I loved, hearing all the stories from all over the world. And I think that, we should, again, this is just part one of the conversation that we're going to continue. And it's a great opportunity for us to learn from one another. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for bringing it all together. And you're right, we sometimes want to avoid letting the children struggle, and struggle can be magnificent and beautiful. And we are in the middle of such a big global worldwide struggle, and we're all here, and we all have so much to look forward to. So if I can ask you for a last time, if you want to add something on the chat, your last thoughts, things that you want to have everybody share. I am going to add an article, a blog post that I found. It's called, "What Shall We Do About the Children After the Pandemic?" I spoke to my group about it in the morning, and I find it very refreshing. And you know what? We're all here. We have so much in common. And that beautiful word Montessori, encompassed by Montessori everywhere. But thank heavens we're not the only ones. There's so many educators around the world, and Lucy has mentioned some of them. And this is an article by a woman, Teresa Taylor Snyder, and she says that we ought not to worry about what is happening to the children about the pandemic in terms of their academics. How many have we heard when parents say, well, my child is going to be behind? And that is such a worry to me as an older Montessorian, because it's hard to explain. But she explains it beautifully in terms of children's brains still work, and their hearts and their souls, and we're here for them. So before we leave, I want to remind you of our next sessions. Please put them in your calendar. April 24th is the adult. September 11th is the environment. November 20th is the community. And again, Montessori everywhere. Thank you so much for putting this together. I know you're all volunteers, and you're all such light beams in our lives. The idea for Montessori everywhere is to have that triangle that we all know: child, environment, and guide, child, adult, and guide, with the space in between held by the community. So these are the topics that we're going to be working with, and I'm sure we all look forward to seeing everybody soon in April. Wherever you are in the world, may light shine upon you. May you all be healthy, you and your loved ones, and the children whose lives you touch. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rahina. I just want to remind everyone that this is a free event. So if you can please redistribute your funds to the Black Montessori Education Fund, that would be great. And if you want to unmute yourself and say goodbye, that would be good too.
Thank you so much, Giselle, for keeping us together and organizing us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rahina.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. So good to be here.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Bye.
Bye.
We are capturing this, right?
Yes, we are, Tammy.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you for coming.